It's me. It's animated me. I'm your host, Andy Burrows, and it's time for another episode of Completed It. Movie reviews, pop culture, celebrity guests, and all that good stuff. Oh, and my good friend over there, Sasha Alari, is my co-host. Hey, Satch, hit the titles, brother. Yes, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Completed It. And yes, that was us watching our own intro. And that is Satch. He is my co-host, and I'm not animated. We are back for another marvelous Monday. Satch, see what I've done there? It's going to catch on. It's going to trend by the time. No, okay, right, not going to catch on. Anyway, we are here to talk all things Iron Man 2. And as you can see in the top left, do not turn off just because he's wearing a Man United top and I am a Tottenham fan. Do not worry about that, everybody. And by the time this comes out, we would have played in the Europa League final and Tottenham would be in the Champions League. Neil, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. Don't know
Thank
about that, but
Well, I
I'm
know, yeah. By
good.
the time this comes out, we will know our fate. One of us will be in the Champions League, and one of us won't have a manager. Probably
Yeah.
Tottenham. We are here to talk all things Iron Man 2, gentlemen.
hmm
Sash, we've been loving doing these marvelous Mondays. Neil,
hmm
we're doing it in order that they come out in the big screen.
Yes, release order.
I won't mention that Sash wouldn't let me do it in Captain America to Marvel's the proper order. He wouldn't let me do it.
Oh, in
Yeah, he wasn't having none of it in like the timeline order. He
yeah.
was having none of it. So far we've done Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, and here we are to talk all things Iron Man 2.
Mhm.
What do you prefer, Neil? Release order or timeline order?
I always prefer release order because I think if you do things in timeline order, you lose surprises. You lose certain surprises. Like if you watch, we're not talking about it. If we watch Star Wars in timeline order,
Phantom
you
Menace.
know
So yeah, I got you.
the things that you know prior to finding them out, it's not as impactful, you know.
I guess for new audiences, like people like us who grew up with it and we've watched them all 1,000 times, but I always seem to forget as well, and we will get into Iron Man 2, but when I'm reviewing movies or we're talking movies, there's a
Yeah.
whole audience now of youngsters like 12, 13, 14. You only have to go scroll through TikTok nowadays. And
Yeah.
yes, I do that and I'm old, but I scroll through TikTok and you're seeing like reactions videos to people watching Empire Strikes Back for the first time, to people watching a Marvel film for the first time, to someone watching, and you're like, oh my God, yes, I am that old. But it's you seem to forget that with movies, in 20 years' time, there's going to be people doing, I'm going to watch the John Wick series or I'm going to watch this. And you're like,
I've
that
seen
is the good thing.
reaction
You
I've
know
seen
what I mean?
reactions to that already. I've seen people reacting to Deadpool and John Wick, and I'm like, I mean, I think about 19 gray hairs sprouted out of my beard the second I saw somebody doing a reaction to watching Deadpool for the first time, and they're like, "How did you get away with this?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, What do you mean?
Yeah.
This is not that old."
Yeah. Some of the reaction videos you watch, and it is that reaction like, this made it to fit. And you're like, yeah, this is before wokeness. We were allowed
Yeah.
to say certain things. But yeah, I watched one last week on TikTok when this little boy, he must have been about 10, 11 years old, watching it with his dad, found out that Darth Vader was Luke. Oh my God, this kid's react. That was what he was like, oh. God, he couldn't believe it. It was absolutely incredible. But boys, we are here for our third installment. We are here to talk
hmm
Iron Man 2, which come out on the 30th of April 2010. Sash knows I love my stats, so it grossed. Wow, you can tell Marvel was really starting to roll now. 623.9 million worldwide. 312.4 million in the US and Canada alone. It had a budget of 200 million. And Sash, I didn't forget this week, it had a marketing budget of $100 million. Neil,
hmm
was Iron Man 2 for you when Marvel really started to ramp it up? Me and Sasha already spoke about like them slowly introducing certain things and nuances into Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk, especially with the
Yeah.
end credit scenes. But in Iron Man 2, we got our first look at Scarlett Johansson.
Yep.
Technically wasn't the Black Widow yet in Iron Man 2, but we all know what she went on to be. We
hmm
got a bigger role for Nick Fury in
Yep.
this movie. It's probably the most we'd seen of him and Shield, and it was all getting explained for. For you, was Iron Man 2 the movie where Marvel went, Oh boy, we've got something here. Let's ramp this up now.
Yes, I think. I mean, obviously, I know you guys spoke about it, so I think if you look at it like a baby, Iron Man 1 was the birth. Incredible Hulk was the first step. Iron Man 2 was the first words.
Such a good analogy, Neil.
Because,
I like that.
I mean, because when you said that you're going to do these Marvelous Mondays, I actually started really thinking about what happened in all of these films, and
Hmm.
especially Phase 1. And I thought, Iron Man, even with and without the end credit, it's just its sole thing.
Mm.
Iron Man or the Incredible Hulk is still its own thing. It just has that little Easter egg of Robert Downey Jr. walking in. However, it does also give you that first glimpse of a Shield logo.
Mm.
The first
Yeah.
time you actually see a Shield logo is in Incredible Hulk, and then it's Iron Man 2 where they said, "Yep, it all connects. It's all here." Because and it's things that meant nothing. Again, this is why I say you have to watch it in release order. Things that didn't mean as much when you watch them mean so much more on the second and third watch. The end of Iron Man 2 with that screen, and you can see all the little dots, and it's I think it's is it, you correct me if I'm wrong, Sash, is it called Fury's Big Week?
I can't remember. It's
I
been
think it's called
a
Fury's
while.
Big Week, and it's
Okay.
like the events of Thor, Iron Man 2, and the Incredible Hulk all happen
Hmm.
in like
Yeah,
the same
because
Oh
second
yeah,
day.
yeah,
you
yeah,
see on the news at the end of Iron Man 2,
Yeah,
the
you
on the
see.
news clip is the Incredible Hulk scene outside the
yeah.
university.
Yeah, so you see that, and then you see when Fury's berating him, and he's
Hmm.
like, "I got issues going off in the Midwest," and he's talking about Thor's hammer arriving,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I'm like, "Yeah, this is the moment where they said
because that's why Agent
we're
Coulson
going to
got
war."
sent to Mexico in
Yeah.
the halfway through Iron Man 2. He's like, I gotta go, I'm off to
Yeah,
Mexico. And then you're like, now you look back and you think, "Oh, genius,
yeah,
absolute genius." Because at the end of Iron Man 2, and again, we talk about spoilers in these, so people this come out a long time ago. The end credit scene on Iron Man 2 is Agent Coulson turning up in Mexico and he gets on the phone to Nick Fury. He's like, "Sir, we found it." And it's all you see at the closing credits is Thor's hammer just sitting
yeah,
there sideways. And you're like, oh my God, we're getting a Thor movie. This is back in 2010. You were just like, you kind of knew what you were getting, but you didn't
yeah.
know. I remember just thinking, we're going to get a fucking Thor movie here. We are getting a full-on Thor movie. Sash, what did you make of Iron Man 2? Obviously, while we're going through our marvelous Mondays, so far we, like I say, we've done Iron Man and the Hulk from 2008. This a great part. And Mickey Rourke played a great part
Mm.
in Iron Man 2 as well. He's a little bit berated now for what he's up to these days, but you do forget that he had some good roles. The Wrestler was a really good film.
Hmm.
Obviously, he done Iron Man 2. I thought he played Ivan Vanko in Iron Man 2. What did
Yeah.
you make of his role, and what did you make of Iron Man 2, Sash?
This is a two-part question. So when I first saw it, I just thought it was all right. I didn't think it was as good as the first one. I thought, oh, okay, so they're losing quality now. Um, I didn't care for the Avengers stuff, like, because I thought they were just gonna
What,
fuck
as
up.
in them getting the Avengers
Yeah, I
together?
just thought they were gonna fuck up the Avengers, to be quite honest.
Okay.
Um, I,
How was that
it's
humble
like,
pie that you had to eat?
no, yeah, sure, it was. But you know what? I was always kind of like this until I saw the Avengers.
Yeah, yeah, I got
And
you.
then I was like, you motherfuckers did it. You know what I mean? Like let me wake myself up here. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. But it was like, here's the thing, like each time we went in,
Mm.
I was like, okay, maybe this will be all right. And I like the individual films, Thor, Cat. I love those films. Um, but I was still, even then, I was like, yeah, you're gonna fuck it up. There's no way that it's gonna, and they won. But my problem with Iron Man 2 is like it's like it's a film with problems, okay, as a film, but you know what I mean? It's still an enjoyable film. Like
Hmm.
it's not a great film, it's a good film. You know what I mean? And my problems with it is obviously we were promised, if you followed it back then, like how I did, we were promised Demon in the Bottle storyline. So it was going to be a much darker storyline about his alcoholism and all that stuff. And we got a glimpse of that, but they didn't go in. You know what I mean?
They
Which was
skirted over it, like especially with the issues with his dad and stuff like that. They
yeah.
did. Yeah, I get
So
you.
they promised that storyline that didn't come to fruition, and then obviously there's the whole thing with Mickey Rourke, who properly trained for that role,
Mm.
like literally like method acted that role and did so much stuff for that role that was filmed, and it ended up on the cutting room floor because this was the movie where Marvel got more involved with the film
Mhm.
where they'd literally piss off John Favreau. That's why John Favreau didn't come back to direct again because they fucked with his movie, basically. When you watch the movie, at first you're like, you know, it's not full, as a film, it's not fully there because, you got a weak ass villain. Yeah, I mean, like the villains are there, but they're not, you don't really know much more about them other than point by numbers stuff. They don't go deep with
Yeah,
Vanko.
they didn't really tell much of a backstory for Ivan Vanko, did they? But you saw the bit at the
Well,
start with his
you
dad.
do
You
get
get
a
a
bit.
little bit. You get a
You
bit.
get a
Don't get me
little
wrong.
bit. You get
Yeah,
you get
nothing
his
for Justin
father
Hammer.
worked on the project
Very,
and
very
stuff
true.
and all of that, but you don't get Mickey Rourke emoting. You don't get
Mm,
him actually really acting his chops in there. And I'm sure they filmed all of that, but obviously Marvel has a formula where it has to be lighthearted and
Mhm.
you know what I mean? They want that blockbuster ride kind of thing. And they weren't going to deal with any like it's daddy issues or that kind of thing in this movie. Um, the other thing was I just felt the Avengers stuff kind of overshadow it from being an Iron Man movie,
was
if
this
that makes
more of a
sense.
setup movie, would you say?
Yeah, and that's the biggest problem with the movie. Okay, I know it sounds like I'm shitting on it, but
No, no, no. It's your opinion.
that's what I felt about Iron Man 2. But then you get a movie like Captain America Civil War, although there's all this stuff happening, Cap is front and center of that story because
Mm,
that's what a film does. You know what I mean? They don't. This is why I had a problem with Black Widow because it's a Black Widow movie. She should be front and center of her own movie, but instead that was an ensemble piece, you know? And that's what annoyed me about that movie. So this one, although it's an Iron Man movie, I felt it kind of shifted a little bit, just a little, not too much,
mm,
because I've seen it multiple times now, and it's, I've reflected a little bit more, and it's a lot better. But those little things are still there, but it's not a shit movie. It's a great movie. It's a great ride,
mm.
um,
When
and
you're
they tried to make it more or less. Let's repeat the formula of the first one because that works.
yeah, I
There's
get
nothing
that.
wrong with
I
that.
get that.
There's
But do you
nothing wrong
think
with that
when they're trying
because that's
to
what people want.
when
You
they're
know?
trying to create a universe,
Yeah,
it has to be a movie where they're like, right, we need to use this movie to introduce this person and that person. That's why I said you
yeah,
think Iron Man 2 was this, because you like say Scarlett Johansson's in it. She's not effectively Black Widow yet. You know what I mean? Agent Coulson gets a lot more, Nick Fury gets a lot more. Neil, do you think that this was not a risk for Marvel, but they're like, shit, we've got Thor and then we've got Captain America, and then we've got the Avengers. So they already knew in their mind, they're like, right, we've got Iron Man 2, but then we've got the Thor movie, then we've got Captain America, and bam, we're getting the Avengers together. So they have to kind of Captain America was always going to be an origin story.
oh
That
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's what that was, and it was great, and it's one of the best
I
Marvel
don't,
movies
I
ever
don't
made.
think two was a risk though. The two
But
was,
what I'm saying is, do you think that they kind of knew that, yeah, that they had to have a setup movie? They knew there
oh
was going
yeah,
to
yeah.
be a
But
movie
Iron Man
when they
two,
went,
Iron Man two as Iron Man two was their safe bet movie.
yeah, I get you.
They knew because it's an established franchise now. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? So they could afford to like do little things that were unconventional. You know what I mean? Well, I'd say Avengers was probably the big risk movie because it was connecting all these
Everything.
things because
Yeah.
that never really been done before on film. Sure, there are other movies that do have crossovers and stuff for sure, but not on that level, not on that magnitude,
Mm.
But,
Mm.
Okay. Neil, do
but
you
I
agree with all
digress.
that?
Yeah, what's your thoughts?
Yes and no. I think because have either of you read the book, The Story of the MCU?
Oh, Sash, get it out again. Where is it? It's
Yeah,
there.
because
It's
I
behind him.
read it.
It's there somewhere.
Yeah, I read it in January, and I was really surprised. And one of the things, no,
There he is.
not that book,
Oh,
not that
Oh,
book. The
which one are
one
you
oh,
that
talking?
I have that book down here as
Yeah.
well. No, it's the
yeah,
one where the people were interviewing. Basically, they interviewed everyone that they could who
Mm,
has any real connection to the MCU, producers, they got actors and stuff. And when they started doing this book, everyone was willing to talk, and then as they got closer and closer to completion, and certain things that you know Disney didn't really want out there for the world to know about,
hmm
they actually told everyone. They sent like emails out to everyone saying do not talk to these people. But by then, you know, it's closing the barn door after the horse has bolted. The
yeah,
characters had already, like, people had already spoken, and
hmm
they mentioned that there was a deal in place with Marvel, basically to I think it was I could be wrong. I think it was like a 10 picture deal or like a 5 picture deal, and probably was 5. But essentially, Marvel were loaned a vast amount of money, and it was, I think it was like 100 million, but it was they were loaned a bunch of money to make films, and they had to make their money back. And I think it was by the time they got to Iron Man 2,
hmm
they'd made that money back
So they can carry on.
so they could continue. So Iron Man 2 was essentially like the we can breathe
Yeah, we
moment,
can celebrate moment. Yeah.
but it was like there was still a lot of things going on. And this is like higher up people, like behind the scenes people. But
How far do you think they thought in advance back then, Neil? We're going 2010 for Iron Man 2. Did obviously, like I've mentioned, we're going to do these every Monday. We're going
yeah,
through it. How far when they got to Iron Man 2 in 2010? Obviously, we're going to get to Thor next, and then
Thor
Captain
and Captain
America, and
America.
then the Avengers. Do you
Yeah.
think the Avengers might have been a cut-off? And like Sasha, that was a risky movie. Do you think when they originally planned this out, the little snippets of what you just said about the budget, but in the back of their mind, you're thinking, right, let's get to the Avengers movie and see how that does. And if it does, and we know where we are now in 2025,
Yeah.
it's like, wow. But do you think back
I think
then,
I'm gonna say no. I think Kevin Feige always had it in his mind we can get to an Avengers movie.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
he did.
I think that everyone, and from especially from reading that book, everyone else
No,
was not on the page.
yeah.
Everyone else was like, we're gonna
Even
do one at a time.
even
We're
the
probably they were
CEO
like,
of Marvel themselves,
"Mhm,
you understand, Marvel as a company were making hand over in their minds was hand over fist money by just renting the IPs to different studios and making
mhm."
money that way. And it was a formula that worked for them, even if the movies weren't successful.
Yeah.
So to make something like Iron Man 1 out of their own pocket and these movies out of their own pocket, there is risk because they're going to take the hit straight away. So the heads of the boards at actual Marvel were like, we're not too sure about these movies, you know what I mean? Because
Well, that's the thing. It was
yeah,
it was
so
toy people, the people who owned Marvel at the time when we
yeah,
got like Iron Man, Iron Man, Incredible Hulk,
yeah,
Iron Man 2. The people who were in charge, who were like head of the table, they were toy people, and they were
yeah,
only focused. They were like, can you sell toys? The reason we didn't get a Captain Marvel movie or a Black Widow movie until the years that we got them is because these people actively said, when Kevin Feige was like trying to push for these, they actively said, girls don't buy action figures. So you're not making a movie where a woman is the main character.
yeah. It's
You
true.
know, non-white heroes aren't selling. You're not making a movie. You're not making a Black
Yeah,
Panther movie because these aren't the characters who are selling. The demographic, the charts, all our reports say Spider-Man. Well, we don't have Spider-Man. They say this character, they say the X-Men, they say, and they listed all the characters, and they were like, here's the top 10. You got to make films on these people.
yeah,
I don't want to
Mm.
hear nothing about a Black Panther. I don't want to hear anything about Captain Marvel or a Black Widow. So I think what it was Kevin Feige had to. essentially talk to the right people and figure out a way to get these people in. So Iron Man 2 was the okay, we've made the money back. You've got your loan back. So now we can do I said I can do what I want to a degree because he got pushback. He got pushback all the way until Civil War.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it was like
that's right.
this is the thing of where he's like, okay, I know what the plan is.
Well,
So I can
it's
put
also
things in
it's
place
also the reason
until
why
these things happen.
the music in Phase Two, like for example,
Mm.
Captain America has a theme song.
Hmm.
Thor has a theme song. Iron Man really doesn't have a theme song other
Mm.
than, Iron Man, AC/DC, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean? The and the reason for that is because when someone creates a theme song, you got to pay music rights to the person
Mhm.
that owns the music. So in Phase Two, Marvel were like, no, we ain't doing that. You know what I mean? Marvel, we're doing that.
Mhm.
But then come around Civil War or around Avengers Age of Ultron, you know, Bob Bob Iger over at Disney was like, what, what's going on? And basically put Kevin Feige in charge of the movie side of stuff and was like, okay, you want that music, you got that music, and then they had no more of that inconsistency thing. But as an example, but there was a lot of pushback on those early films on certain decisions and stuff, and everything was a risk. I mean,
Mhm.
they weren't secure until they had Disney money, and then they didn't really have the freedom until Civil War to do
Yeah.
Mm.
what they wanted to do.
Because that's the thing.
Civil
Even
War, we almost got a very different movie of that.
yeah.
And I don't want to go into that because the focus is Iron Man 2.
Mhm.
But there were lots of fights or lots of decision
Pissing
making
contest.
and stuff like that. Because Marvel was a risk.
Mhm.
It was a risk, but it was ultimately a risk that paid off, for them.
Mm.
You know,
One question, Neil, just to catch up
Yeah.
on what you just said there about the demographic, Black Panther, and all that.
Mhm.
What do you think the moment for Marvel was? Was it when they'd made a shit ton of money? They got the Disney money.
Mhm.
Disney come on board. What was the moment for them? Do you think? Obviously, we're talking about Iron Man 2 today, but while
Yeah.
we're on the subject, what was the moment for you that you thought Marvel gone right? We're going to make Black Panther. We're going to make Captain Marvel. We're going to make etc. 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 Because
Mhm.
you now just see them as part of the universe, Marvel universe.
Yeah.
When me and you were speaking on text last week, you were like to me, "I love early Marvel.
Yeah.
You love it." And I'm watching back these movies. Me and Sasha were texting during the Hulk. I was like,
Mhm.
"I don't know why this movie got shit on. I fucking love this movie. This is really good movie.
I
Like
will
really good movie."
I
no
will
one
point out
really
to
shout
you,
on that.
I will point out to you one thing, and I've said it to Sash several times before. I generally don't think movies are bad movies. I think you really have to be a bad movie to be a bad movie. But I do think
Thunderbolts, Thunderbolts.
well, I don't even think Thunderbolts is a bad movie, but guess what? It's bad in comparison to the best of Marvel.
Yeah, that's the problem you
Oh
got
yeah.
nowadays, isn't
Whereas when you
it?
think about it, you think of like, okay, so we've got, all right, so we've got, let's say the top five Marvel films. Let's say everyone has their own, but I'll say, let's say we got Iron Man, Avengers, Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War. That's just me plucking five names out of the hat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brave New World is not a bad movie.
Yeah.
No,
Brave New World
I didn't
is
mind
a
it
bad movie when you compare it
to what
to
you just
the
said.
Captain America trilogy. When you
Hmm.
Yeah.
compare it to those three films, especially Winter Soldier and Civil War, it becomes a bad movie by proxy.
Yeah.
Mm.
Iron Man 2 is not a bad movie, but when you think you've had Iron Man 1
Yeah. Yeah.
and then you think there is Iron Man 3,
Oh yeah, don't get John started on that. Oh,
right?
he comes on
It
with us. He
becomes,
hates
I
that
mean, no,
film.
no, and I say this not being an Iron Man 3 fan, but
I
it
like that.
it becomes a thing where something becomes bad because you've seen better from the same individuals beforehand.
The problem with Iron Man 3 as well, it come out, it was the movie after the Avengers film.
Yeah. Well, no, it's to me,
Not
it's
that.
not
It's
that.
more the Mandarin.
It's the
It's the
Mandarin
Mandarin.
is
Yeah,
the key thing.
yeah.
You got to understand, as an Iron Man fan,
Yeah.
Iron Man fans have been waiting for the Mandarin since
I
the
got
first
you.
one.
Thing I
They were
grew up.
promised. They were also promised by John Favreau that it was all leading towards the Mandarin,
And
and
we all
then
know what
they
happened.
got
Yeah.
what they got.
Because
And
he remember Iron Man.
yeah,
We're talking Iron Man 2. Iron Man 1 was meant to have the Mandarin in it,
Hmm.
but
see, so,
they got X-nayed,
yeah,
and then Iron Man 2 it got X-nayed, and here we go to Iron Man 3. But it is that thing of
yeah,
films become bad because of the greatness you've seen before them,
mm,
right?
Mm.
And when I mean, people are like, oh, Iron Man 2 is not great. Iron Man 2 is not. Iron Man 2 was great until the Avengers.
Yeah.
Until the Avengers came out and we had, oh wow, this is what you can do. And then Iron Man 3 came right after it. Then you're like, oh
Yeah.
wow. Well, hold on. Wait a minute. So this film here, you're like, Thor 2 is not god awful. It's not amazing.
Yeah,
But
no, I agree with that.
when you consider
But when you get further down the line to
the
like Love and
six
Thunder,
films you've had before it, and then you consider Thor Ragnarok,
nope,
then it becomes
no,
it becomes the ugly red-headed stepchild.
don't get me
You
started
know,
on Thor Ragnarok. Do not get me
right?
started. I can't wait to get. But what was the moment then, Neil? Do you think that they thought, "Fuck it, we're making Black Panther, we're making
I think that moment came film-wise, that moment came when Guardians of the Galaxy was released.
mm,
mhm.
I would say though, that moment actually came the second the second Kevin Feige was like,
fully interested.
listen, when he
Uh,
went to Bob Iger and he was like, I can't work under these constraints. And Bob Iger was like, say less. Right?
yeah,
The second that happened, then
Yeah,
he was like, Black Panther.
yeah.
And
Sensible one.
because the second we hit that you hit that stride where the constraints have been taken away. Sometimes that can go against you because Sasha knows how much I love it, but the second they give, Mr. Snyder free reign, sometimes he goes a little too far.
Mm,
I'll admit that.
mhm.
But I think generally, when you have a good enough head on your shoulders, you give someone free reins, they will provide you with excellence. The MCU worked because it's opened everything, you know?
Mm. It like we said on the last episode, you're kind of like you are stepping into the comic book now. For Iron Man 2, it's for me, it was them just going, right, we're getting this character in, we're getting that character in, and
Hmm.
we're just opening up the pages and we're gonna
Yeah,
go, here you go.
because
This is what you get.
yeah, because I'll say, and I have no doubt that Sasha will agree with me, right? That he was probably in this exact boat when Iron Man 2 came out, and then you had Black Widow, and then you had, reference of Thor, and you had he probably had I had people I've known for years who are not into comic books, and they were like, what was that thing on the
Yeah,
ground? What was it? A hammer? Why was there a hammer? And they were
Yeah.
like,
What was the end credit scene about?
yeah, and
yeah.
they were like the thing that the guy in the suit held up that was red and blue with the star on it, that looked really familiar. What was that? And I'm like, that's Captain America's shield. And they were like, oh, okay. What does this mean? Who's this character? And I was like, you got good stuff coming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's what I think Iron Man 2, you kind of knew that Marvel were like, right, this is what we're gonna get. This is where we're going. And I thought Iron Man 2
Yeah.
kind of set it up. One person we mentioned on the Iron Man review, Sash, and we can get into it now more. Rhodey was played by Don Cheadle for the first time
Yes,
in
in Iron
Iron
Man
Man
2.
2. What did you boys think of that? Because like Sash, me and you got we got into it in the
yeah.
Iron Man episode. Obviously,
Well,
talking
walking
about
out.
Terrence Howard not being there anymore and Don
Yeah.
Cheadle now taking over as Rhodey. I mean, for you, was it you were saying, or was it John saying you had to watch it two or three times to get used to him playing Rhodey? I
Oh
mean,
no, no, no.
now you kind of just think, well, it's second
Oh
nature
yeah,
now.
yeah,
But
yeah. I mean, the first time I saw it, I was like, what? Where was Terrence Howard? You know what I mean? Because that's the first
mm,
thing you think. And then, at first I was like, I don't like John Cheadle in the role because I really like Terrence Howard.
Mhm.
But the more, the more films you watch with John Cheadle in, he's grown on me. You know what I
mm,
mean? He's grown on me. I can't really see anyone else other than him now.
mm,
I did prefer Terrence Howard, but you know what I mean? Don Cheadle has done a good serviceable job, man.
mm.
Um, throughout kind of thing. Um, but
Neil's
yeah,
dying to say something.
yeah, go on then.
No,
Go on.
see, I have to. I don't. Okay, I do not disagree
Yeah,
because, in truth, I think that Terrence Howard is a better actor than Don Cheadle.
yeah,
Hmm.
Simply because, I mean, you think of it, and I'm like, you watch films like Hustle and Flow, and
yeah.
I'm like, you watch films like Crash, and you're like, yep, he can act. I just think that I've never seen a film or a show where there's one movie that I've seen where Terrence Howard has had the kind of comedic timing that would perfectly match with Robert Downey Jr.'s kind of off the cuff ad lib, just quick,
Yeah.
wittiness, right? Whereas Don Cheadle can play the straight man who has comedic timing better than Terrence Howard. But I think the reason why I would say I prefer Don Cheadle to Terrence Howard is because as with all of what I just said, Iron Man 1 is a very straightforward film. There's comedy to it, but the comedy to it is a ever so slightly higher brow than the rest of the MCU.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Everything you see in the MCU post Iron Man 1, Iron Man 1 is a very serious movie when we really like sit there and watch it. It's a pretty serious movie despite superheroes and everything. Iron Man 1 is closer to something like, say, The Dark Knight than Superman the movie.
Okay.
Hmm.
Whereas when you watch from Incredible Hulk onwards, and you've got Iron Man 2 and Thor and Captain America and everything, they settle into a certain groove of comedic timing.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you
And
get
I
to
think
Thor Ragnarok, and it's like watching Laurel and Hardy.
but I think it's you reach that point and Don Cheadle works for that type of humor.
Hmm. No, I agree. Yeah. No, yeah, very well put, mate. Very well put. Sash, if you had to say when you look back at Iron Man 2, would you say it was a catalyst for what was to come?
No, they'll
Okay.
always be Iron Man 1,
Hmm.
because they knew where they were going. The minute Nick Fury came out and said, "You've just stepped into a larger universe,"
Yeah, you
I
knew the
mean,
Avengers
that
were.
was that was it. That was really it. Iron Man 2 just cemented it.
We were kind of all waiting for the Avengers movie when he said that, weren't we? We were
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
what have we got to go through to get to the Avengers movie? And we knew it was Thor, the first Thor, which we're going to get into next week, which I thought was really good. I really enjoyed that movie. Really one of the better Thor movie for me. And we can probably get into it in the later weeks. I think the Thor franchise was the one that went downhill fast, in my opinion. From Ragnarok and Love and Thunder was like watching a Marvel version of Titanic, which we can get into in
No,
the.
a Marvel version of the Titanic,
Yes, yes.
of the boat,
Yeah,
not the
hitting the
movie.
iceberg and sinking. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I really thought the Thor franchise just died on its ass. I didn't enjoy it at all. After the second one was okay, the first one was brilliant.
Mhm.
Yeah, for me, Love and Thunder, Ragnarok, nope, 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 nope. I'm kind of giving away what we're going to do on the Marvelous Mondays when we talk about them. But yeah, for me, that I did. But for
I love. You know what? Fuck it. I love fucking Ragnarok.
I know you've told me this
No,
before.
no, shut. Wash your mouth, man. Ragnarok was fine. And now here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. Ragnarok was Taika Waititi with handcuffs, which for Taika Waititi, he needs to be locked in handcuffs, okay? Because when you take those handcuffs off, you get Love and Thunder, which was terrible, universally terrible.
Yeah,
It's a
it
dog shit
it
film.
was a god awful
It's a
movie.
dog shit film. It's a dog shit
It was
film.
a love story.
No,
You
it's a
know what
dog
I'll
shit
say
film.
with this? I know what I'll say with this.
Yeah,
I know, as you said, we are speaking about Iron Man 2, but what I will say
yeah,
with this is Ragnarok is a good movie. It's a not good Thor movie
yeah,
Very well put.
yeah,
because you think about it like this, right? Captain America, Iron Man, Ant-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, any film, any Marvel
yeah,
established character that has more than one movie. Those characters have remained consistent to who they are every movie, regardless of what happens to them, regardless of what they go through. There is growth. There's no way in hell that in 2025 you could have made Iron Man 1, right? There'd be so many problems, so many, you can't say this, you can't
Oh,
show
the
that.
political issues with
Yeah,
missiles and yeah,
all of that stuff
that movie would
never
not get made
happened,
now. Yeah.
right? But Tony Stark has growth from Iron Man 1 to Endgame, I Am Iron Man. That entire stretch of time, he has growth. Even if you just remove all of that and say he's got three films, Iron Man 1, 2, and 3, he has growth of the character.
Hmm.
Thor grows. We've got Thor 1, establishment. Thor 2, growth. Thor 3, regression.
Hmm. I
It's
agree.
You know
yeah, it's
what?
a
I
brilliant, it's
disagree
a
with that.
brilliant
I,
and comical movie, but it's
yeah,
regression because he goes from in Thor 2, he goes
yeah.
from a character who is like, okay, I understand the burden of leadership, the burden of being a king, the burden of the crown. What my dad was talking about in Thor 1 about you need to make peace, you need peace across the realms. He goes from that to a surfer
Yeah, yeah.
in Ragnarok.
Well, this is a bigger conversation, which we'll
Yeah.
save for.
For Ragnarok,
Remember
yeah.
this for
Okay, yeah. Neil, you're
Ragnarok.
coming on the
Yeah, yeah,
Thor
yeah.
Ragnarok
Because
review.
I have a counter,
Yeah.
and I can see me and Neil going at it for a while.
Okay, well, I
I
can
can
just introduce the
legit
show
see
and go
us
and make
going
a
at it
tea
for a
or
while.
something.
So
You know,
let's take our
we'll
time.
figure it out. I'll be fine. You just let me know when you finish recording.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Neil, as always, mate, thanks for jumping on with us, man. It's been good to
Happy
talk
to.
some Iron Man 2. I don't know why we're doing this, but we're going through the entire Marvel movie franchise every single Monday. It's
Because
Why
it's
don't
getting
you
time
just
for a
listen to Zombie
retrospective.
Crew?
That's why.
yeah, it is good.
Time for a
We're getting to
retrospective.
watch them all again. So we are going to be back next Monday,
Mhm.
talking the first Thor movie, which was probably his best movie in my opinion. But we're gonna get into it. Neil, let me know. You're more than welcome to jump on and join us if you'd like
Yep,
to chat
happy to.
all things Thor, mate. Just let me know. Anyone that wants to go and check out our content, just go onto YouTube, type in "Completed It Podcast" into the little search bar. That logo behind me will come up. Like, subscribe, share, all that good jazz. Also available on audio. All the audio is up on now. So if you're on Spotify or Apple, you can listen to us in your ears. If you're at workout, jogging, doing whatever you want, you can listen to us minus the intro because I haven't always figured that out yet. But the podcast is there. But me and Sash will be back every Monday. Neil will be chiming in. We got John. We got loads of people from our great WhatsApp group that we're in that want to join in and talk movies with us. But we'll be back next Monday with another Marvelous Monday. Yes, Sash, it's going to catch on. I promise you, it'll be trending by the time we get to the end of this series. But till next time, everybody, I've been your host, Andy Burrows, and we have completed another episode. Stay safe.